the Marshall Plan. Caitlin, you are so good. God, this is a smart girl. Sit behind her, Jake. Okay, so we look at the Marshall Plan. What did the Marshall Plan do?
Didn't they do the thing where they went, like, they talked about going over to Japan, like, rebuilding there?
We rebuilt Japan, we rebuilt Germany, we gave them money, we took care of them. We made darn sure that everything worked out for them. And it worked very, very well. Okay? And that's the story. Well, the Marshall Plan is a turning point in history. Now, I've just explained why. Because instead of totally defeating your enemy and then kicking them some more when they're down, we went in and did something that was pretty darn cool.
We helped them back up.
Not only did we help them, but we helped ourselves. Because Japan and Germany, they both had markets that needed everything. Because we destroyed everything in those wars. So they needed machinery, and they needed building products, and they needed washing machines and cars and all those things. And guess who was there to provide those? So we not only prevented another war from happening, but we made ourselves bigger, faster, stronger. And we did it in the 1950s. America was in great shape. The rest of the world was destroyed. We weren't. Our factories went from producing war material to producing peacetime goods, like washing machines and cars and all those cool things. And we sent them over there. It was a market that was ready-made for us. So that is good stuff. That is the crux of a National History Day project. Now, one of the people... Of course, Steve, why don't you take it from here? Because you're better at this than I am anyway.
So, the center of the country generally, do you think they supported getting into war or not? I mean, sort of like Ohio. And that's where my grandfather was born. He was from Ohio. And in 1947, he helped organize a conference. He got 60 leaders from different parts of the world to get together. My mom was in the front row here. She was your age. So imagine having your dad in charge of bringing in like 60 people from different countries. So these are the stories she would tell me. And this right here is a general, Bradley, who was worked with Marshall. And so one of the reasons they got together here was in January 1947. The Marshall Plan was announced about 5 months later. And something that has not really been well explained is where Marshall got that idea. Now, there's a George Marshall website, and they'll explain. I don't know if anybody, I had to look it up. It's basically Harvard in June. He made some sort of announcement. But this was some of the articles that came after this January 47 event. Marshall doesn't speak until June. U.S. as global Santa. What do you think that means, U.S. as global Santa?
Just giving things away.
I mean, that's what one of the dissenting editorials were writing about. But that was kind of cool because this was after, like February 1947. And something that I just thought was a really interesting sort of track would be for somebody, I haven't seen it anywhere, where did this idea of being global Santa really come from? And I think it happened at this. They even, I don't know if you can see this, it started in Cleveland. Now, what is that it? I don't know. And that would be part of the research project somebody would do. It's kind of neat. And these things have been sitting, I mean, I was your age, my grandfather was alive, he never mentioned this to me. And my mom had this in the library. I looked at it once when I was about your age, and it never clicked that this took place in Cleveland where she was growing up. So, anyway, what are some of your projects? What kind of projects are, have you guys decided on something already?
Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King. Oh.
The Wright brothers.
The Wright brothers. What sort of question are you sort of pulling up? 'Cause both of them have been studied a lot, so have you found some sort of angle that looks like different, or is it more like a, here's something to learn about?
Yeah, I get that
Like a
one.
representation.
A which?
Never mind.
Oh, no. Well, what's your project? What's your
Oh,
project?
I'm with him.
Oh, you're working
Yeah, I
together?
was,
Yeah.
yeah, I was helping him out.
Your hand is up, please.
We had JFK assassination, would the Vietnam War have happened if he hadn't been assassinated, and all the things that surrounded it?
Cool question. I've never asked that question, but it sounds like a good one. Yeah. So you guys come up with questions that you haven't found a lot of material about? Is that one of the things that sort of comes up?
I mean, there's a lot of material we're trying to, just like kind of, or like not prove it.
There's a lot of material on the assassination, but like not as much on like specifically
Yeah.
would the war have happened without, like with him being assassinated or without him.
Oh, interesting. And with the Wright brothers?
I don't know, I haven't really investigated it now.
Oh, I had to do something, for a while, I wanted to study history so I could teach it. And,
What if planes were never built?
what's that?
What if planes were never built?
I mean, that's kind of like the big question.
What if
but,
planes were never built?
like,
The Wright brothers.
Or maybe like, I don't know, I was thinking, were there any other people that were working on the same project as them?
Oh, that
Like,
is
it wasn't
so
the Wright
interesting.
brothers.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. That makes it so cool, because that's something I really haven't seen a lot of. Everybody focuses on Wright brothers, Wright brothers, Wright brothers.
Because there could have been like someone else working on the same project, or like other people involved with it. I don't know.
Connecticut.
Okay.
It's like this little, if you go to a place in Connecticut, they have, what's that? You used to live there, okay. There's this guy, there's this little town that has a museum to the first flyer, claiming that he flew before the Wright brothers, but it was never substantiated, at least for outsiders. People in Connecticut are sure. So that's interesting. I don't know if you've ever seen these like maps that go across like with timelines, like, you know, while this was happening, this was happening.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Have you seen those?
Yeah.
And that would really be good with the,
Yeah.
you know, like, who else? Because there was somebody in Brazil, there's somebody, and he was going all over. He had this thing that had a hot air balloon or something, like helium, and it had wings, and it was powered. So Brazilians say, or some Brazilians, that he was flying before the Wright brothers. And when you look at this thing, you say, well, it's not an airplane, come on. It's got this big bladder. What's that?
Isn't that a book?
That's what I would say, but they'd say, oh, but look at the really big propellers and look at those wings that they've got. So it's hard to persuade my Brazilian friends that really, well, I don't have the brightest Brazilian friends. They're very patriotic, right? But, so what are the other projects you guys are doing? Women's rights? Is there a specific event?
The movement.
Movement. So, I remember that, what, Susan B? Is that one person you're looking at? It used to have a dollar. Anybody know this dollar thing? It was a
Silver dollar?
coin.
Yeah,
But-
I've seen it.
I don't know, silver. It was a dollar.
Dollar coin.
Dollar coin, that's a better way to say that. Yeah, Susan B, so. They have these awards called like the Susan B. Anthony Awards. So is it, what, focusing on some aspect of women's rights?
No, just all of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
big
What's the turning point?
Oh, that, you know, it was there. Have you heard of this thing called the tipping point? There's turning points and tipping points. I don't know if you can hear that there might be a difference, or maybe there's the same. Have you heard this term, tipping point?
I've heard it. Probably guess what it is.
Oh, okay, go ahead. What do you
It
think
would
of?
be like, starting a movement, like,
When it
I
really
can't do
like
it.
takes off, it's been building up and then it finally.
yeah.
Yeah, the straw that broke the camel's back, and suddenly all these things happen. That's a real critical question. I would love to know where that was with the women's movement, because I understand some of it was that they were against drinking alcohol or something like that, and that was like one thing. But then suddenly there's voting, and what was the point when suddenly the newspaper
became
started?
emasculated?
Well, no, just like when did newspapers really start covering the issue? When did politicians start talking badly about them because they were fearing, my God, these people are really getting popular? That tipping point thing is so interesting. And coming back to here, I think my argument is that by pulling these people into Cleveland in January, it was that tipping point that allowed Marshall the space to go to Harvard, where he's got a welcome audience. There would be nobody booing him because it'd be, nice, more
Eastern
elite, He'd have the background knowing that Ohio had this gathering.
Middle America. What's the old
And-
saying? If it's a place of
Plays in
Peoria.
Peoria,
Yeah.
that's it. And what was remarkable was the amount of coverage that were in other languages. I'm going to just pass this around because I think it took me 45 years to get interested in this subject. I touched this, and then, when I was about your age, and it's only been, a year ago that I got interested in this, so go ahead and, maybe there'll be something that's really cool to add. I think I can leave this with you guys.
Oh, yeah, we'll take very good care of it. I'll make sure you get it all back.
Because,
I promise.
I have a very, I really believe that history happens over time. You don't just kind of okay, I'm gonna do this one project, and I'll fall in love with it. God, it took me 45 years to really try to understand this. I hope you guys are a little faster than that, but
You've been doing 15 instead of 30.
yeah, really.
So the project, Mr. McCrae, is, they have to use primary source documents. Some of these sources are, is this primary or is this secondary?
Oh my God, primary source. Well, if there's a newspaper article.
That can be primary or secondary, because remember, primary is
Actually saying,
actual seeing it. Exactly right.
like first.
Okay, so if somebody's quoting somebody that was actually on the scene, that's good stuff. This is primary source material. Okay, and primary source material, you need primary source material for your project. No primary source material, that's it. And they want you to think like historians. And thinking like historians, easier said than done, because who knows what a historian thinks like? Can you really think like a 90-year-old guy? Okay, that's the most historians. Don't they seem to be old usually? You don't find many young historians. Oh, there's
Well,
those two
because it
ladies.
took 40 years for the thing to become interesting.
Mr. Cray is handing out a little bio of Brooks Emeny, and Brooks Emeny is his grandpa.
Yeah, and basically what happens is he did organize this event, but I think it was more because he left $2 million to the organization. That's why.
That's how they got the little bios here then, okay? Yeah, somebody leaves me $2 million, I'll remember them.
Yeah.